Corporal Cody Evans, Boise Police Department. Just a quick down and dirty. Been there for 18 years. Various different things that I've done with the department. Currently, I'm in our community outreach division. I work as a neighborhood contact officer and head up the ILED program for the Boise Police Department. So, like I was telling Jocelyn, I've given this presentation a couple different times, and I don't know if it's because I'm doing a bad job or if it's just a liked presentation. I will tell you this much: I have a passion for addiction recovery. So I'll dive right into it. I'm open to any questions. I'll have the chat open. I'll try to respond the best I can while I'm giving the presentation. But if I miss anything, don't hesitate to chime in and interrupt me. I won't be offended, I promise. So the LEAD program, it was initially called LEAD. We started back in 2018. I was in the same assignment I'm in now. And we had just been writing a bunch of search warrants, arrest warrants, and it was all drug related. Ultimately, as we continued to look at the problem, we started getting really frustrated because we would go in, we'd serve search warrants, arrest warrants, and the individuals that we'd contact, they all had that same nexus, right? They all had, at that time, 2018, it was a lot of opioids, a lot of pills. We found that we'd arrest them and they'd be in jail for maybe a couple hours, a couple days, a couple months, a couple years, and then it would just rotate, come right back, and we'd be working with the same individuals over and over again. So that's initially where we came up with the LEAD program. And Jocelyn, to click through my slides. Sorry, no, there we go. I'm ready to go. I think I got it. Is that me or is that you?
That was me. I'll work on giving you control though.
Okay, perfect. So I kind of already touched on this, but again, it was generally pills at that time for us in Boise, and kind of the definition of insanity. We just kept going through, again, arresting the same individuals over and over again. Just a couple slides of the different scenarios, cases that we had. This one is where we had a stolen iPad. They had to find my iPad on there. We traced it, ended up in this house where 4 juveniles were living, as well as parents. Parents initially, before getting addicted to pills, full-time jobs. The dad had his own business. Mom, I can't remember specifically what she was doing, but both full-time jobs, very successful, contributing to their community, but then got wrapped up in opiates. When we served the search warrant, this was the house. You can see the kitchen, the bathtub. If you look in that bottom right photo, those were containers, not that we brought in to collect syringes. Those were containers that they had in their closet. Just those are those big liters of apple juice, orange juice, and they were just collecting all the syringes in there. So this ultimately, with those 4 juveniles in there and the parents, ultimately it turned into a trap house where you just had individuals coming in with those juveniles and those parents, and that's where they used. So again, another big reason why we were trying to find a different solution to a continuous problem that we had. We saw at that time, obviously we've been doing this for years, but at that time, 2018, we just saw a dramatic increase in opiate use. We saw a dramatic increase in burglary reports, and that was commercial, residential, vehicle, increase in violent crimes, because in the past it was kind of crime of opportunity, but it turned into, I need my dope, I need my fix, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to make that happen. So we started targeting those street level dealers. And then again, like I said, we ended up just repeat, dealing with the same individuals over and over again and not really providing a solution, just putting a Band-Aid on the problem. So the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And that's where we were back in 2018. Ultimately, the saying we kept repeating to ourselves and to our supervisors is we're not arresting our way out of this opiate problem, because again, we just keep dealing with the same individuals. And not only the same individuals, we kept dealing with the same locations. Even if we eradicated a problem in one location, We gave it a couple months and we'd be right back at that same location. So the light bulb, law enforcement assisted diversion. So we are always behind, as I'm sure all of you know, we're always behind the East Coast. So we can watch that trend start in the East Coast and then slowly move over to the West Coast, which is a good thing if we could stop it before it gets over to the West Coast. But the law enforcement assisted diversion, it's not a new program, but it was new to Boise at the time. So we had looked at several different programs throughout the East Coast that had emerged and that law enforcement and communities were using. We ultimately got a bunch of entities in the room, health and welfare, Trivium, Raise the Bottom, doctors, law enforcement, probation and parole, prosecutors, and ultimately came up with a program that we thought would work best here in Boise. Ultimately, we, as Boise, agreed that we would launch a pilot program just to test to see how it would work and to work out the kinks. And which ultimately ended up where I would be in charge of any candidates, contacting any candidates that law enforcement had contact with and figuring out if they would work in the program. But prior to all that, why we care, again, obviously the big care is we want to make our community the safest we can. But ultimately, the biggest thing looking back 2018 and looking back on why any law enforcement officer joins law enforcement in the first place, and it's to protect and serve our communities and provide solutions, and not provide band-aids, but provide solutions. So I remember back in 2018 thinking I understood what addiction meant, and quickly learning from staff at Trivium, staff at Raise the Bottom, and working closer with addicts themselves, that I had zero clue what addiction meant. And I still won't claim that I know much more about addiction, but I can claim that I know some super awesome addiction recovery specialists that absolutely know what they're doing and have been a huge contributor to this program. But overall, the things that we looked at was understanding addiction, the habit, the expense of it, safety for the community, for the addict, safety for officers, decreasing related crimes, which was at that time every crime. All of them seemed to have a drug nexus. And then we were finding throughout our discussions that it wasn't very far removed from each individual within that room trying to find a solution, that we had coworkers, kids, relatives, friends that were suffering through the same addictions. And then additionally, drain on resources for many entities within the community, and then the overall goal to save lives and save our community. So when we all gathered in that room, all those entities that I had mentioned before, we had to come up with, and again, initially this was a pilot program, we had to come up with qualifiers for individuals. Obviously, with our law enforcement contacts, we couldn't, because of the beginning stages of the program, this is the different criteria that we came up with throughout a lot of discussion. So it's a one-time only program. You come into the program, if you fail out of the program, you don't get a second chance in the program. If you successfully complete the program and then you fall later, you still can't be readmitted into the ILED program. No minors. We can't have any juveniles for self-explanatory reasons. No registered sex offenders. Must not involve a crime of violence. This being, if we show up and it's, I don't know, I'll go worst case scenario, but it's a murder, we're not going to offer. If that had that drug nexus or has that drug nexus, we're not going to offer to provide diversion over taking somebody to jail on a murder or domestic violence or a injury a child type crime. Now, that's not to say those last two we wouldn't offer resources and give them the opportunity that once they do get those things figured out, resources like Trivium or Raise the Bottom or all the other entities within our community, we'd still offer those, and we do still offer those. No new charges while in the program. The charge can't involve a trafficking weight, possession with intent to distribute as far as drugs go. No firearms, no new felonies while in the program. We have somebody in the program that committed a new felony. That's an automatic disqualifier and a discharge from the program. They can't have any significant health issues. Again, I think that's pretty self-explanatory, especially for this audience. They can be on probation, misdemeanor or felony, but we have to get the approval of their parole officer or probation officer. Must be willing to sign waivers, HIPAA waivers, just so that the group or the team consists of addiction recovery specialists, law enforcement specialists, and in order to communicate how those individuals are doing within the program, we have to be able to talk about their drug testing, their medical status, their are they showing up for their groups and so forth. So in addition to that, being Abe County resident, that one has kind of changed over time, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. Must want help. That seems kind of silly, but from the law enforcement perspective, if we show up and we're encountering individuals that are suffering through addiction, it's not hard. It's not a hard decision if I offer it to them and they say, I give them the option of, hey, you can go to jail or you can not go to jail and go into treatment. In our experience, anytime we offer anything but going to jail, they're going to say yes and select that option. So we have learned over time and sticking to this of them actually wanting help, asking for that help. And that usually results through a long dialogue with them upon initial contact. Again, another self-explanatory one, especially for this group, they can't be in a state of medical detox. And then the last, they cannot be involved as a law enforcement confidential informant, just because that's contradictory to what we're trying to do. If we're having them work in the drug world, but we're trying to pull them out of that world, didn't make sense to try that. Oops. So ultimately, how did we find them, or how do we find them? Initially, well, I don't want to say initially. How we find them is we push this program out to all our patrol officers, just because they're the ones that have first encounter, but we pushed it out to them that this is another opportunity, another tool. If they came into contact and initially it was only opiate based. So that was the only thing that would qualify them to be involved in this program. That's since changed. It's any addiction. As far as drug addiction, as far as alcohol addiction, if they have any of those, we'll take them. If they're wanting help, we'll take them. But how our contacts initially ended up, there were a lot of welfare checks where we had individuals. A good example is a couple that was completely passed out on the nod from heroin use in the Jack in the Box drive-through. Contact was made with them, ultimately resulting in them qualifying to be in the program. We've had shoplifters where the stores and the entities that have the power, or the powers that be, have agreed to not press charges initially if individuals would go into addiction recovery and successfully complete the program. Again, like I talked about in the very beginning, a lot of search warrants is where we contacted a lot of individuals suffering through addiction. And then there's many other scenarios where it's been consensual contact, where we've obviously seen individuals battling through addiction, and we've just made consensual contact with them, offered them opportunities to be in the program. So again, ultimately how the process works, we pushed it out to all our patrol officers and department-wide for that matter. and relayed to all officers that if they encountered an individual suffering through addiction, specific at that time opiate, but now any type of addiction, contact me. I would respond out, contact the individual, talk to them about the LEAD program, the criteria that they would have to follow to be in the program, review their history, their drug history, how they initially got into it, what their current use is, what their current housing situation is, their current transportation situation is like, their current communication. Do they have a cell phone? Do they not have a cell phone? We just review all those things with them on scene. If they meet criteria, typically how it works is I'll reach out to Trivium and let them know that we have a potential candidate. We will then, after I talk to that individual in the field, and again get a baseline, we'll then have that individual either transport them or have them transported, or if they can and they're not under the influence at the time, they'll meet us over at Trivium, and then we'll dive back through those same things that I talked to them in the field about. I'll relay that information to Trivium staff in front of that individual, just because in the past in the beginning stages, we had a lot of individuals that I would drop off or meet them there, introduce them, and then I would leave. And then those individuals would say, I don't have an issue, I don't have a problem, and be completely manipulative with the Trivium staff and trying to, like I said, take that opportunity of not going to jail. And that's all they were looking for, is not going to jail. So we learned over time that it'd be more effective to me have an interview with them in the field and then relay all the information that they talked about in the field in front of them with Trivium staff, so that we're all on the same page and that there's no way that they can be manipulative at that time. We did learn as well that just those first couple months in the program, they're in that addictive mindset, very manipulative, trying to work everything in their favor, and trying to, we use the verbiage, triangulate us against each other. They would contact me saying things weren't fair and that asking for things that were on the addiction recovery side, they were the experts in, and then vice versa with Trivium staff. So we have learned over time and through this program that we are very upfront and honest that the addiction recovery specialist are the addiction recovery specialist. I'm the law enforcement specialist, and we talk a lot. So it's not beneficial for them to try to pin us against each other. So, again, just continuation of the process. They meet with the lead team. A recovery coach is assigned, classes are assigned, med management, whatever Trivium at that time decides that they need, and then just working with them on an individual basis based on their history, expectations, set up dosing if needed, regular drug testing. The big issues for us have been, for candidates coming in, is living situations and transportation. That has probably been one of the biggest roadblocks that we've encountered in this program. And then just following treatment intake, and the lead team continuing to monitor their status by having, initially independent upon individuals in how many individuals we have in the program, having regular meetings. It's explained to the individual up front that we're still writing a report, and those officers that initially encounter individuals and have crimes on these individuals, all those reports, if they qualify for the program, are then routed over to me, and I maintain those reports. As long as the candidates, and again, this is related to them, successfully complete the program, which is a 1-year time period. Those reports or those charges are routed to file. They never go through the court system, and they never see those charges, which ultimately is initially that's the teeth that we have to get them motivated in the program. We have found that quickly becomes not the motivation when we're able to get their mind right and get them in a more clean and sober state, the motivation then becomes turns from the charge to they like how they feel, they like where they're at, they start seeing progress, and that charge ultimately becomes kind of a non-factor until the very end when we remind them that now that they will not face charges and those charges have been dismissed. It's also explained to them that failure to complete the program, whether that be in the first month or the last month, failure to successfully complete the program results in me routing that report to the court system for a warrant, which ultimately then leads through the court process. So to date, these numbers are actually a little bit bigger now. We've had, these are from last year. As of this year, we've had 63 candidates come into the program. We've had 15 graduates. The rest of those have failed out or been discharged, and we currently have one in the program. These, I would say over the past probably year and a half, 2 years, the amount of individuals being willing to come in the program has decreased. Why that is, I don't know. But I think partially, my personal opinion, partially that's on law enforcement officers not offering the program. And then the other half, I would say, just individuals not being in a position. And what I mean by that, not being ready and willingly admitting that they are not ready to be in a program like this. Prior to discussion and questions, I will say that, again, it's been a learning process. I would say the program, as we started it in 2018 to now, is not vastly different, but different. We have learned a lot. I think Amy could speak to it as well as many on the ILED team, that we've learned a lot. We've learned that we needed to have more upfront parameters, monitoring these individuals, having contact with these individuals, and that this program is super successful when we individualize this program to each candidate, because their addiction has started very differently, and obviously each individual goes through the addiction cycle differently. So fantastic program. Like I said in the very beginning, I'm very passionate about it. It is, again, over the 18 years I've been in law enforcement, probably by far the most rewarding project operation that I've had the opportunity to be a part of. So questions, comments, discussion.
Thank you, Cody. Does anybody have any questions? You can unmute, or I think I see one in the chat, but if anyone has any questions to unmute, you can unmute first.
This is Dave Martin in Pocatello. Thanks for talking to us about this. That picture you showed us of the house with the kitchen, the bathtub, and makeshift sharp containers, that is unbelievable. How in the world do you get an environment like that cleaned up?
Yeah, that is an environment like that requires a specialist. We would usually reach out to a specialist company to come in, because it's a biohazard, and they come in and clean at least the drug stuff up. But as far as that house specifically was a complete gut and remodel inside.
Thanks for coming, Cody. So Cody and Trivium, we piloted this program, and I saw that there was a question if it's rolled out in other cities. It's actually a statewide program now, pretty much in every region in Idaho. And I have had some clients that have graduated the program and gone on to do great things. And then I've had some clients that didn't qualify for the program, and they still went into treatment, and they still call and text and update Cody on how they're doing. They'll text him and ask for help with whatever it is, or they're just like, hey, like look at my kid and how well they're doing, just because of the impact that he's made on them. Yay, Cody.
It looks like there was another question asking, is it all ages of people that fail out or are discharged?
And so, as far as all ages, yes. Obviously, we don't have any youth in the program, but we've had age range from 18 on up to, I think we've had a gal that was 60, in her 60s. And again, as far as what we have figured out on the failing out, there's been kind of common factors in that. Big ones are housing. Again, others might disagree, but that has been a huge hurdle for us to try to combat in having an individual in this program and pulling them out of whether they're sleeping on a couch or they're sleeping in a hotel. If we can't get them sober housing and unfortunately sober living, I just haven't had the biggest success with that individuals. I'm just seeing a bunch of individuals that are suffering through similar addictions in the same location, and I just haven't seen any success in it. So the biggest success is when we've been able to find a family member or some sort of stable living condition to help them be successful. The other one has been communication and transportation. Those have been the top three biggest things. And then I'd say the fourth one is just communication. They're in that addictive mindset, so they're very manipulative. We tell them up front that our expectation isn't that from that day on, that they're perfectly clean. It's just that they are perfectly honest. If they slip up, just be honest, own it. Because if they're slipping up, then we need to modify something to fix that slip up. We can't fix it if they don't talk to us.
So, this is Todd Palmer. I apologize if this information was already out there, but Amy and Cody, I'm a little unclear on exactly what the program offers. Is it offering counseling, MAT? What exactly? I know about the criteria and all that, but what exactly are we doing for these people?
Yeah, so it's treatment. So they'll enroll in behavioral health treatment, whatever level that they qualify. Most of them are 2.1. If they need something higher prior to that, we help coordinate that as well. And then if they're interested in MOUD as well, we connect them. Used to be Raise the Bottom. Now we can do it on our own. We have Dr. Nina to help with a lot of that. So it's a full treatment response, case management, recovery coaching, all of that.
And is this all done through Trivium or are other agencies participating?
Boise and Caldwell is done through Trivium. I don't know about where the other regions go.
Okay. And we have had individuals that it's been more successful for them or more tailored to them to go to inpatient facilities. So there's other entities in the community that we've referred them to as well.
And what happens if they don't adhere to the program? If they drop out, they don't attend? What are they still with jail time or what? How does that work?
Yeah, that just goes through the court system. They'll see a judge. They could be looking at jail time. They could be looking at probation, just dependent upon what the charge is.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
There's one more question in the chat. What are some of the common reasons for people to be discharged from the program once enrolled?
Yeah, I would say the common is I would say the most common is they use once they get into the program. They are afraid to admit to that use. They stop showing up. They stop communicating. And then we ultimately can't get them re-engaged. And so it ties our hands. We because it is addiction, we understand, again, it's not going to happen overnight. So we work with these individuals to re-engage them, to give them opportunities to be successful, again, tailor it to their individual needs. Ultimately, we will, with the individual, we work, and then if things aren't working, we'll ultimately sign a behavior contract or ask them to sign a behavior contract. detailing out what they have to do and what they can't do. And if they violate that, that's kind of the end all be all. If they violate that, then we're going to have to discharge them.
Sorry, I just had another question, probably for Amy. Who's funding this, and what are the numbers? Like how many people would you say a month or per year?
So we help them get funding. So if they qualify for Medicaid, they'll see a case manager. We'll help them with that. We also help them get state funding to pay for treatment. Most of them qualify for something, whether it be BPA or Magellan state funding now. So yeah, we help them through that process as part of it as well. We'll also help them get into safe and sober housing if they're interested in that.
And how about numbers? Like how many new patients do you get per month, would you say?
So like Cody said, the numbers this year have been a bit lower for whatever reason. In the past, I don't know, Cody, we've gotten like several a month at one point. It's like we were seeing you all the time.
Yeah, it's varied. We kind of ebbs and flows. We've had it to where we've brought, I think the most we've brought 4 to 6 in a week, and then we've also, I'd say right now it's been 1 every couple months. It's kind of tough right now.
And there's one last question. Is family involved in their treatment?
We try to involve family as much as we can. Obviously, that's up to the individual. But I know my first contact with them, I try to figure out where they're at with their family. If they do have family that's close, a lot of times that's really hard because they've burnt those bridges with family. But I try to offer opportunities to go and speak with their family if they're willing to let me go speak with them, to talk to them about the program, because obviously that's probably the number one place that I'd like to house them is with family if they're not enablers. But just having that support system, having the ILED team in addition to their family is a recipe for success.